one's asking why. The world keeps spinning, no one seems to care. Lost in the noise, a silent prayer. Does anyone out there even hear the cry? I'm just a voice in the wind, but I'll keep on screaming, 'cause someone's missing. I won't stop dreaming.
Hi, welcome everyone. Um, as you know, today we have the juror. She is the holdout juror that agreed to come up on panel today. She will join us at 1:30. What we're going to do is kind of refresh a little bit, just for a little bit until she pops up here. But before we get started, I just want to say that everything stated here today is alleged and should not be taken as fact. I trust that all of you can make up your own mind. You have your own opinions, your own thoughts, and your own theories. This is for entertainment purposes only. And I have to say that just because we aren't the judge, we aren't the jury, and we're definitely not law enforcement, and we're not trying to solve the case. Please do not throw out names of anyone that you think may be guilty in this case. Like I said, we're not here to solve a crime. We're here about Michael Politte, the justice of him and his mother, Rita Politte. Um, and with that being said, thank you all for being here. I appreciate each and every one of you for even taking the time today to listen to this. And I'll go ahead and I will read this little article here, and it kind of explains the majority of it. So let me share this now. Okay. I hope you guys can see that. Let me make sure. Can you guys see that okay? Let's see if I can get it a little bigger. Maybe. There we go. Okay. So I'm just going to read this part here. As you can see, here is Michael Politte. Linda Dickerson Bell is the juror that will be joining us at 1:30. It says Linda Dickerson Bell is determined to undo what she believes was a grave mistake she and other jurors made 23 years ago when they convicted then teenager Michael Politte to life in prison without parole for the murder of his mother, Rita Politte. There was one piece of evidence that was given: gasoline on Michael's tennis shoes, that has since been proven not true. She says that knowing that this is false evidence, I cannot live with what we did to this young man. Politte was granted parole in 2022 after a federal court ordered Missouri to overhaul how it handles the parole process for offenders convicted of committing violent crimes as a minor. By that time, he had spent 23 years behind bars. Dickerson Bell says that parole is an important step, but that his release from prison is not enough. She is pushing Washington County Prosecuting Attorney John Jones to pursue a wrongful conviction case. I want him to be 100% a free man, the way he should be, because he did not commit this murder, she said. Dickerson Bell organized a rally outside Jones' office on Tuesday and was heartened by the 25 or so people that participated. She hopes that greater numbers will get Jones to consider Politte's case. She has asked to speak with Jones since he took office in January 2023, but has yet to hear back. And here you can see that she's over here on the right, and there's the protest that they had Tuesday in front of the Washington County Courthouse. For her to do the right thing is amazing. It shows me so she has integrity, and we need more good people like this. It's amazing what she has done. I'm not a constituent of Washington County, so perhaps maybe that's one of the reasons he doesn't want to meet with me. I don't believe so, but if that's the case, we'll get a petition gathered, she says. And if nothing else, we'll get him out of office. In the 3 years since his release, Politte is focused on spending time with his family and establishing his career. As a general foreman, he travels the Midwest for construction projects and spends the weekends with his sisters, niece, nephews, and his girlfriend. Politte said he's proud of his ability to transition back into society after being incarcerated at 14 years old. But being on parole, he added, means he's still not free. If my conviction is not overturned, I have a life sentence, which means I have a lifetime of parole, a lifetime of checking with a parole officer, of getting travel permits so I can travel to and from work. I'll never be able to vote. I'll never be able to own a firearm, go hunting, he says. Having a felony conviction on your record holds you back in so many aspects of life. You can't be fully productive. Politte, who has representation from the MacArthur Justice Center Midwest Innocence Project, has two other options if Jones does not take action. For him to be exonerated, the Eastern District of Missouri would need to act on a habeas petition that Politte's attorney filed in 2023. Otherwise, Missouri's governor would need to grant a commutation. I'm so sorry today. For Politte, exoneration would mean more than freedom from the constraints of parole. He said it would also provide the opportunity for justice in Rita Politte's murder case. I get exonerated. Now they got an unsolved case. Now my mom's murder investigation is open back up. Maybe they'll actually go investigate something like they should have 20 plus years ago, he says. Last Thursday marked Rita Politte's birthday. Michael Politte and his family recognized it with what's now a yearly tradition, setting stone angels by her gravestone. He said he keeps her memory alive by working to make her proud and remembering the way she laughed. He states, I always think about her laugh, jubilant, full of life when she laughed. She just sounded happy. That is, it's so heartbreaking. But as I want to introduce you guys to Linda. Welcome, Linda. I'll go ahead and add you to stage. Hi, Linda. Oh, she might not. She's on mute, so maybe she'll be back in just a few minutes. I'll leave her up here just in case. But while we're waiting, I also, I just want to say, this is such a sad, it's a very heartbreaking case, but everyone needs to know about it. If we don't bring light to some of this darkness, nothing ever changes. So we have to change the cycle. We really, really do. So what I'm going to do is play just one little video, maybe a few more, if because I think she had planned at 1:30. So when she gets back and she's ready to talk, then we'll go ahead and let her have the floor so she can say what she needs to. But for now, I will go ahead and play just a little bit. I know I played this yesterday, but it's really important for you to kind of see who Michael is and who he is today.
They don't want to admit that they got anything wrong. And I haven't even been in the courtroom. The only physical evidence that the state used to convict me for this crime has been proven false. And they tested 3 samples at the crime scene, and none was positive for any accelerant, including gasoline. But still, they used this testimony, the dog sniff evidence, and my shoes as evidence that I set my mother on fire with gasoline. There is no gasoline on my shoes. That what the lab was detecting was the aromatic solvent used in the manufacturing of tennis shoes. If I present my case to a court and a court does not see innocence, then this court system does not see innocence at all. The moment I learned when I was going home was exciting.
Yeah. Where's my lawyer? Yeah. I love you guys, man. Thank you so much. I'm leaving here the same way that I came in here. Right the bicycle.
Time feels different. It feels like a chapter is ending. This chapter of incarceration, it's been close to 2/3 of my life is over, and the feeling is really indescribable. How it feels. Best way I can describe it is going from life to life. It's going to be great to be able to sit on the back porch with my family, my sisters. That's always been there for me. They're more excited than I am, I think.
It is going to be a wild ride, and we're going to have as much fun as possible. It's really indescribable the feelings that I'm feeling right now. There's so many emotions going on, good ones, exciting ones.
To be back together again after all this time is like all we really ever wanted, and today's the day.
Yeah, they've been with me every step of the way. They've always knew I was innocent, and they knew that one day this day would come. They always told me it would come. They kept me going. And Mom, she's happy. She's happy. If I'm free, I feel young. Yeah, so it's amazing, man.
Got it.
if this can happen to a 14-year-old kid, imagine who it's already happened to and who it can happen to. Because I was a 14-year-old kid I had my whole life ahead of me. Yeah, we were very close. Yeah. I mean, I was her baby. Like I remember at school we had the Valentine's Day maybe, and she gave me like $20 for the event, whatever, and I bought her a necklace and gave it to her. And yeah, that was pretty neat. How do I explain to myself or others why I'm still in prison? Because this is a judicial system that is overran and overseen by flawed human beings. They don't want to admit that they got anything wrong. It's been discovered through the due diligence of the Midwest Innocence Project that the fact that there is no gasoline on my shoes, that what the lab was detecting was the aromatic solvent used in the manufacturing of tennis shoes. The only physical evidence that the state used to convict me for this crime has been proven false. Justice for my family would look like my release and the reopening of my mother's murder investigation. I just want to hang out with my family. I'm ready. I'm ready to go home. I just want to go forth and show her that she made an impression. And I try to conduct myself in a way that she would be proud of.
The video with the music was actually made by Melanie, Michael's sister. And if you listen to the words of that, how like looking through the glass, because that's exactly how they had to visit their brother. And they've stood by his side the whole 23 years. Both of those girls have stood by him. They knew. They knew the whole time. And he has been released from prison and he did serve his 23 years. And but they even though he is out, he still has a parole officer. And the Midwest Innocence Program has helped him a bunch. I mean, they without them, I don't think he would have been released. But until he can get off of this parole, they're not going to reopen Rita's case. I mean, it's, and they may not even. I mean, we really don't know that they will reopen this case at all. But what we do know that if Michael Politte is innocent, and they've proven now and released him that he is innocent, why is he on parole? And that's where Linda comes in because she was the juror that was unsure the whole time. And I don't know if she is I'll put her back. She's up here, but I don't know if she can hear me yet. She's still muted because she's supposed to come up at 1:30. So she may just come back at 1:30. But I kind of wanted to explain the extreme part of all of this is not only is this family still wanting to know what happened to their mother. I mean, who did this? Someone did this. And even though they have released him, you know, they still, and yes, Arctic, right. The problem is that they may not even have the evidence after all this time. And that is true. We are dealing with a very small town. Small towns. It's so hard to get justice in small towns. It is. It it really is. But Linda has agreed that she is going to come up and talk about like her experience as that juror. And we all need to think, we all get jury duty at some point and how important that is. And so, I give her so much credit for doing the right thing because after all of these years to be the one to do the right thing, and she says she's not going to stop. She's just not. And God love her. I mean, you've that so much respect for her because at the end of the day, I mean, if no one stood up and did the right thing, Michael Politte would spend the rest of his life in prison. I mean, let's think about that. 14 years old. You wake up to this, oh my God, I mean, the worst nightmare you could ever imagine. and then spend 23 years in prison. I mean, when he came out, I'm sure he probably, well, he didn't have a driver's license, of course. He probably hadn't used a cell phone. The internet probably was quite a challenge for him. I mean, this is a child that grew up in the prison system. And as heartbreaking as that is, it takes one good person like Linda that says, hey, stuff has been on. And she's going to explain how that how even the setting of it, and it chokes me up even thinking that a 14-year-old boy could go through all of this. And there's so much in this, so much like he was interviewed in the back seat of the police car without an adult. That alone is no, it doesn't work that way, but it did. Linda, are you here with us, or I know she's still muted, but I think she'll be back. She'll be here soon. But the main thing of this is he's out, but who killed Rita Polite? We don't know. And whoever did this monster is very well out there. I mean, we don't know. Do you guys have any questions? Like, I'm curious with chat. What do you guys think so far? And feel free to ask any questions. I just don't want like any names of who may have done it, any of that, because like I said, it's not going to do us any good to theorize on who did and who didn't. That's kind of not our job. But this story needs told. And I've looked all over, and even though this is a high profile case in Missouri, it's hardly anywhere. It's not. And if it wasn't for his sisters this whole time, just never giving up, protest after protest everywhere, I'm not sure that this would have gotten this far. Any questions at all from you guys in chat yet? Oh, Sarah says she's already crying. I know it will choke you up. It's horrible. And as Michael said in one of those videos, I mean, if it'll happen to him, how many other people has this happened to? Really? I mean, we don't know. We really don't know. Nothing? Y'all have no questions at all? Hmm. Yeah, and Arctic, the evidence, 23 years, I mean, I don't know that they have every piece of evidence. I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. I don't know. I wish I did. Because it's I can't believe more creators haven't picked it up even, because this is how many of us have boys, have children? This could easily be any of our children. Any of it. Really. But let me see if I can share this other. We just have a few minutes. She'll be here in just a few minutes. But I mean, what do you guys think? What if this were your child? How would you feel? How would you react? And have any of you had jury duty before? Like, have you guys ever been, any of you had jury duty where you actually were picked? Yes, wisdom. It is very shameful on the justice system, because they immediately I think they thought of him as he did it the minute they saw him. They said he didn't show enough emotion. What what exactly is the correct amount of emotion when you're 14 and you wake up to this horrific nightmare? What do you do? What kind of emotion do you expect at that point? I'm sure he was just processing what he had saw, thinking, is this even real? Because you know how fast crimes happen fast. And then you always think, I could have or should have. But really, he's 14 years old. I don't even know at 14 that you know how to process it. Arctic says, well, I would fight till my dying breath for my child. I wouldn't be like Michael's daddy. Well, that's a good point. Great point. And on top of that, you know, the things that Michael had to see and then go to prison after that. I mean, think of how strong-willed he must be to be okay today, to actually be okay and still have that fighting spirit of, and he didn't take the plea deal. He did not take the plea deal where he would serve 15 years because he said he's not going to admit to doing anything that he didn't do. That alone is, wow. Most people, especially young, he was young. Most people would have taken the plea deal thinking, well, I'm just screwed anyway. But he didn't. He didn't. And that shows something too. But yes, I agree, Arctic. I would definitely be fighting for my child until I couldn't anymore. Definitely. Mm. Linda, are you here? I'm sure she'll pop up in just a minute. Let me see if I may be able to find another video so we don't have this awkward silence. But it's so heartbreaking because this is just a little tiny country town. And I know I keep saying that, but when I say tiny, I'm familiar with this area, so I mean tiny. You have one little store that all the kids hang out and even some adults, they had some pool tables in there. That it was a general store, but they had pool tables for the kids and arcades and like arcade games kind of deal. A little jukebox in the back, just what you picture a little country store as. But I'll go ahead and play this one. This one seems maybe I better wait a minute. I don't know if I shared that or not. Okay, let me go ahead and share it.
The moment I learned when I was going home was exciting. It was the buildup was great because they called me back from work, and I was working in the furniture factory. They told me I had to go to Building 10. I knew what it was. It was a parole officer. And she said, what she said? She said, well, I got your date. I said, it's a date? Because you're always in the back of your mind of a setback, and it's happened. And she was like, it's a 60-day date. Almost cried.
Yeah. Where's my lawyer? Yeah. I love you guys, man. Thank you so much. The adrenaline rush of walking through the gate. I passed through the little area where I've always seen it when I was working in maintenance, and it's the walkway that passes through the death fence. And I'm like, man, one day I'm gonna walk through there. And it was finally here, and I took my time. I looked around, and I even told the officer, I never thought I'd be at this point right here, parallel with the death fence, and walking through it. And it was amazing. It was awesome. I ain't seen him since he was 12 years old, and I was 14. We're gonna take a bike ride from the parking lot to the railroad tracks. On a bicycle. I'm leaving here the same way that I came in here. Riding a bicycle.
Time feels different. It feels like a chapter's ending. This chapter of incarceration, it's been close to 2/3 of my life is over, and the feeling is it's really indescribable how it feels. Best way I can describe it is going from life to life. The thing I look forward to the most is just hanging out with my family that I've missed for so many years, and never even really been able to hang out with them. So that's the most exciting part. It's going to be great to be able to sit on the back porch with my family, my sisters. That's always been there for me. They're more excited than I am, I think.
It is going to be a wild ride. And we're going to have as much fun as possible. It's really indescribable, the feelings that I'm feeling right now. There's so many emotions going on, good ones, exciting ones.
To be back together again after all this time is like all we really ever wanted, and today's the day.
Yeah, they've been with me every step of the way. They've always knew I was innocent, and they knew that one day this day would come. They always told me it would come. They kept me going. And Mom, she's happy. She's happy. If I'm free. I feel young. Yeah, so it's amazing, man.
Wow, that one always gets me a little teared up. I mean, it does. And for him to say mom and that she's happy because he's free. I mean, some of us don't have our mothers anymore. And for him to hold that kind of faith, well, I don't know. That's strong will. It is. It is. Linda, have you joined us yet? She should be here any minute. And this has to be super hard for her. So I ask for all of you guys patience. Please have some respect. She relives this every day. The things she had to have seen in that courtroom, what she was told. She is muted, but I don't know if. Let me see it. Let me unmute her and just see. Oh, she's got herself muted right now. So because she has herself, Linda, if you can hear me, you're on mute. If you could click that unmute. If I don't know if she's with us right at this moment, but she has herself muted. Um, let's see if I can send her a message. She may be stuck. You know how StreamYard is. But please, guys, have some patience. With her today, I'm sure this is hard for her. I could only imagine what she is going through. And she's so strong, strong, strong. Okay. Um, I'm sending her a message. She's having a little bit of trouble, guys. So just please be patient for just a minute. Okay. So maybe she'll try to come back in again, and we'll do it this way. StreamYard Connect. So silly sometimes. Artie, they have nothing to do, as far as I know. They have nothing to do with him. They they choose not to have anything to do with their father. Which, you know, it I I, I don't know. I can't really say I blame them, but I don't know because like I said, we don't know. We can't say for sure either way. We can't. But at the same time, I mean, there's a lot of things that point in lots of. There she is. Okay. Hi, Linda. We'll try it this time. Can you hear me? Oh, ooh, I think she's having a little bit of trouble. I see the little ring here. Hmm. We'll get her up here, guys. We'll get her. There you are. Hi, Linda. Can you hear me? You may have to unmute your mic. We can see you, but we can't hear you. You'll have to unmute. I don't know that she can hear me. Let me see if I can. Sorry, guys. You know how StreamYard is. It'll bump us off. Hi, Brutally. Hi, Nicole. Thank you for joining us. We're having a little bit of trouble with StreamYard. She's not hearing. She's not able to hear us. I may have to send her another. Oh no, it's saying something went wrong. Okay. I may send her a new link. Maybe that link expired. Let's try that. Okay, let's try this again. There. I see that you're unmuted. Can you hear us now? Linda, can you hear us? Oh no. See, I had her on audio. Mm. Linda, can you hear us now, honey? Oh, now she's muted again. Bear with us, guys. It's a little hard to get used to. StreamYard is pretty hard to get used to. Linda, if you can hear us, you're on mute. I tried to unmute you, but it's not letting me because you're on mute. You chose mute. Oh, I see that you're talking, but you're on mute. If you could hit unmute. There you are. There you go. Can you hear me? Let's see if we can edit. Oh, I can't hear. I see that you're talking, but I can't hear you. Oh, goodness. Oh. We can see you, but we just can't hear you. Hmm. All right, let's try this. Linda?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know what is going on. At least we can see you, but at least you can still go through this way. So we can see you. So we'll do it this
Okay.
way. That way we
All
don't
right.
have to go the other way.
All right. I've heard nothing that's been said. I have had
Oh,
zero
okay.
audio since you started.
Okay. Well, what we did is we just went over the article that you had sent to me, And now we'll just kind of go with, I'll kind of give you the floor to explain what that setup was and what you felt when you were in that courtroom and stuff that changed your mind. I want to give you the panel so that you can say whatever you feel like you need to.
Gasoline on his tennis shoes. So it was never a matter of changing my mind.
Okay.
With that being said, whenever you're on a jury, I had never been on a jury, nor have I been on one since. But I know that at that time they didn't really do anything other than the fact that this is a gentleman. He's been charged with this. He's guilty. All of this information saying that the three witnesses, the witnesses was basic and Miss Foley. It was pretty much critical exhibition against him. So, with
Okay.
that being said, as far as changing my mind, it was figuring out what to do, how you could correct it. Because
Right.
everybody has to agree, and then they didn't give us really any kind of advice as to what other options we had in our home. He could either parole or life with the possibility of those options that 100% had to even to the never anybody said anything. No, it is was work. There was very little action if there's one, and he wrote it that he was removed from the room, taken to the chamber of the judge to come back and me. They need to be said so that they could get out of there.
Oh.
And there's an affidavit to that effect because I was just not willing to go along with it. And so when everybody says, "Oh, she just went along with it," that is not at all what happened. There's affidavits to prove that I was not, nor did I never feel like he was guilty.
So you were like the last holdout, like you were one like, I just don't believe he's guilty. And that's hard. That's a hard
Right.
situation.
And it is a very hard situation. And I mean, people are slamming their fist down on the table. It was just a very uncomfortable situation. I'm not one that will just give in for anything.
Right.
But I could just see there was absolutely no end to the tunnel, that we were just going to be forever. And no one in that room believed in his innocence except for me. There was a lady in there that did show some sympathy towards me, but she was still not willing to say no.
And what made
Everybody else
them
would go around the table. Yes, 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 yes.
what made them so convinced that he was guilty? The shoes?
I never saw anything that could make, yeah, that would have to be the only evidence because that was the only evidence that was ever presented against him. I guess two things would have been presented against him. One being the physical evidence, which was the shoes, and two, the fact that they called him Bernie, and his basically was based on the fact that he liked to burn things. That was kind of the thing to do.
Oh, and see, that's
His
sad
mother's
because
body was burned.
but that was his nickname even as a small child. And they didn't even bring that up, did they?
No, we didn't know that. And that's one thing that I always have wanted to say is like, people are going, "Are you stupid? How did you not do this? How did you do that?" We as jurors knew much less about this case than the regular general public.
Wow.
Like, we did not know anything about the divorce. We did not know anything about the statements that Edward had made the week prior to, once she was awarded half of his retirement at 401k, that she would never live it long enough to see a penny of the money. We did not know of many, many things that should have been brought to us. And that's not the fault of the prosecution. It's definitely the fault of the defense. With that being said, he's written two statements since then, two affidavits saying that I messed up. I wasn't prepared to handle this, and I would have done this differently.
Oh, wow.
That does for us.
Oh,
I just don't know what that does for us at this time.
right, right. I mean, wow. So you said that they had lied. They had lied to you guys. Could you kind of
Well, it was the lie in the fact that presented to us that there was gasoline on his tennis shoes.
Okay.
Did they know at the time they were lying? I don't know that they knew that. From the evidence that we saw, it was actually proven in 1996 that the product that was on his tennis shoes wasn't chemical used to make his tennis shoes. The murder didn't happen until 1998. The trial didn't happen until 2002. So one of two things: either they were not educated enough to know that, and they should have been, or they lied.
Wow. So, how did it feel? I mean, I know that once you get picked, because I have been selected in jury, and I was the holdout. Also, it wasn't a high profile case like this; it was more of a drug case. But I know that they get angry in there, and if you are the holdout, they expect you to come on. Like they're tired of waiting; they've already made up their mind. But the sad part is, sometimes the mind's made up before the case is even provided. That's
And that was the case with us as well. That was 100% the case.
okay. And has
And
any other juror come
jury
forward?
asked. So there have been 3 other jurors that came forward and wrote affidavits saying that they believe in Michael's innocence and that they would want him released. But that's all they've done.
Oh,
They have not participated in routes. They have not gone in. They're actually contemplating looking up what the law is and seeing if I can hire an attorney. And I mean, they've marred me.
oh no.
It would have been a whole lot easier to accept my trust, because now people are thinking like, why did you do this? I did know better. At the time that I did it, I did not know better. But now that I do know better, I will do better.
Of course. Yeah, because the right thing is the right thing. And it's sad that you're having to stand alone
Right.
when there are other jurors that agreed with you, but you're still standing alone.
Now they
Hmm.
didn't agree with me at that time. They
Oh,
since agree with me. Like they actually agreed. They agreed that he was in as my affidavit, because I did not know any of this investigation was taking place, because I had purposefully kept myself out of with the case, because I was praying to goodness that someday somebody would call me and want to know what I knew about the case.
uh-huh.
And I never wanted to confuse what I knew with what I heard or what I had read. So honestly, until 2016, when it came out with the MTV episode,
Uh-huh.
I never had a discussion with anybody else because I didn't know what to do. And again, like I said, I didn't want to confuse. But finally, at that point, I was like, nobody's ever going to ask, so I may as well learn what I can learn.
Right. Wow. Wow.
Because this is 100% something that bothers me on a daily basis. I mean, it just truly bothers me. Does it all bother me with the fact that there's a murderer walking around, and should I be successful in getting this case reopened, that person can be held accountable? Yes, that bothers me as well.
Sure. Sure. Yeah, because someone did this. Someone,
And so
and they're
that's where
still out there.
right, and that's where my husband, exactly, and that's where my husband is constantly like, wouldn't it be better for all of us if you just didn't say anything? No, it would be better for all of us. Would it be safer? Perhaps.
Right. Right. But you don't live in Washington County, and so you weren't even familiar, like you didn't know the family anything, right? So you went in blindsided with just being picked as a juror.
That is correct, yeah.
Okay.
That lives in Washington County. I've always lived in Francis County.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, at the time of the trial, whenever I was called as or whatever we did, I never suspected that I would be on a jury that particular day. I don't know what I never believed that I was a juror, because first and foremost, my dad was the foreman of the grand jury,
Oh,
which would have automatically disqualified. My
sure.
father was also a police, which should have disqualified me. And I was currently a city council person in the public safety committee, which worked very closely with police, which should qualify me. So I was 100% sure that I was going in there as a formality, would be released and not have to serve on a trial. Little I know there even was a trial that day.
Wow. My goodness.
And so when I
That's
say that statement about, I made reservations for the afternoon, I don't say that with arrogance. I say that with ignorance, because I truly thought it was just a matter of going in, explaining who I was, who I knew, and what I did. And they would be like, sorry, we don't need you. And that is what I expected. Now, the fact that it was brought over from Washington County, I guess, made the fact that my dad was the foreman of the grand jury null. So that did not stand. But still, the fact that he was a police officer. And of course, the state thought they had a pretty solid case, a winner case, and so I guess they wanted someone on me. police's side, which they would have guessed that I would have been, and I was actually at that time.
Sure.
Like I said, well, the officers are good. Not mean that I'm against officers, but I am against bad actors who are
Right.
police officers.
Absolutely. I like, yeah, like I back the blue, but I also hold them accountable. So I get that. I do.
Right,
But
right.
I do feel like you should have been excluded though, being, having officers in your family, but you're right, because prosecution would want that. You're, they would want to choose you.
Right.
Mm,
And the fact that the defense attorney or the public defender just was not prepared for the case, I don't know how he ever allowed me to get selected, but it certainly, I guess in the long run, it actually did benefit Michael, but it certainly did not at that time.
right,
So,
right.
there are affidavits. I don't know if you've read them, but there are affidavits, and I have every single one of them. I have bundles of emails, but affidavits that actually single me out that says, there was this one juror, she was an absolute holdout. I was called to make her, basically force her. Every single thing about this case is just disgusting to me.
Right. And how they handled it.
And these are statements that I didn't. Right, exactly. We didn't know the contingent sister, didn't know about Johnny Foley, who was actually walking up on the railroad tracks or walking in the area. Until recently, there's some construction going on 8 Highway was going to Potosi. And my daughter was nervous about sitting at a temporary stoplight. I said, Mom, come here. I think if we go here, we can go this direction. And we actually were in a direction, and I was, gosh, we are direct in front of the murder scene, Michael Politte's house.
Oh, yeah, right there on that.
Behold, that really put it.
Yeah, that 8 highway construction. Sure.
Where,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. Yeah, we turned off and landed right there, and it really put it into perspective even more so, because what I had seen read, it put it really into perspective as to how close the railroad tracks were, how close the store was.
From their trailer, yeah.
In my mind up until that point.
Right, right.
Right, up until this point, it was miles away. It literally is not. I didn't know that until just the past month when I was traveling. One of the trips to my trip to Washington County prosecuting attorney's office to leave documentation that he never been there.
Wow. So you had no idea even in Hopewell, like you weren't familiar with any of that then.
Oh no, ma'am. I have absolutely no anything or anyone in Potosi. I mean, a few friends, but we're up until just recently. And then for the last, whoops, I just lost you on the screen.
That's
but
okay.
For the last 6 years, I've served on the Great Minds Health Center board. I'm actually the vice president for that organization. So once a month at least, I travel to Potosi. Yeah. And that's just within the last 6 years.
Hmm. Okay. You can hit that link again. It may bring you up. I'm not sure why the audio wasn't working. I've never really had that problem, but I see that you're here again. Let's see if it'll. I'm hoping that the audio works better.
Yeah, never let me hear anything, and I could tell what you were playing because all of it was familiar, but I didn't hear any of it.
I do
but
not
that's
know.
Okay.
I'm so sorry. I haven't had this problem before, and I'm not for sure how really to fix it, but I'm gonna try.
That's okay then. Sure.
Yeah, just so we get the story out.
Sure, absolutely. So Victor Thomas
Mhm.
is a gentleman that actually did an affidavit. We're ready to read his affidavit.
Uh-huh.
I'm trying to see. There was a juror. No. Yes, he says, I also would have liked to have known about the man seen walking away from the victim's house on the morning of the murder. The jury never heard this evidence and any other possible suspects, which is true. And he later goes on to state that I believe that if the jury had heard the evidence of the victim, just divorce and possible alternate suspects would not have voted to convict Michael Politte. After hearing this evidence, I believe Michael Politte is innocent. And that was dated in 2017.
Wow. Okay.
Jonathan Ray Peterson affidavit. He was also a juror. He later says that during deliberations, Pratt called me out of the jury room to speak to me. I was by myself when I spoke with the judge. I do not remember anyone else being there. I think the foreman told me that the judge that I was. The bailiff brought me to the judge chambers so that the judge could speak to me. I think the judge asked me to be brought in, and that was his affidavit as well,
Wow. So for this long,
which I've never heard of.
yeah.
For this long, it all just laid moot. I do know there's another young lady. Well, actually, there's a friend of mine's mother who actually served on the trial as well. I've had a conversation with her over the phone. She 100% believes that Michael is innocent. I'm not exactly sure why she doesn't get involved with trying to get him freed. I can only speak for myself.
Well, yeah, I mean, in her defense, it has to be scary because if if Michael is innocent, someone did this. So I could see where the fear would come in of, well, if he didn't do it, they're still out there, you know.
Oh, I understand that 100%, but that's the same on coincidence or I have to serve.
Right.
But I can't look back up.
No.
I can stop. So the fact that someone says one of the male jurors thought Michael was guilty immediately, and he tried to convince everyone else from the beginning of the trial. At this point, I had my doubts that Michael could have done this crime on his own. When I also had doubts of the crime that it was even Michael's idea. I questioned about his friend Josh's involvement and was suspicious as to why Josh did not testify because he was given complete immunity.
Yeah.
From that.
Wow.
She then goes on to say that she's learned about the evidence of Michael's case, including that the physical evidence of the gasoline on his shoes at the trial was false, and that was the only evidence that was being used to send him to jail. This evidence would have made a difference to me as a juror. And that was David.
Oh my.
Yeah. So I mean, just on and on and on.
So how did that feel as they walked Michael in? And you don't have to answer if you feel uncomfortable answering any of these questions, just say so. I mean, I completely
I'm
get
not
it.
uncomfortable.
But as you
No,
sit there and you see this young 14-year-old boy coming in, I mean, what hits your mind? Like, what were you thinking? Because I'm sure it was such a shock to all of you that this young boy, I mean, he's a young teenage boy.
I was sad. I cried a lot hearing that. I sat front and center on that jury panel. It was very upsetting. I was not proud of any of it. I wondered who all of the people surrounding him were, like who was his family, what side are they on after hearing the case that had been presented. I kept thinking eventually somebody in his family is going to get up here and say something about this man and going to tell us that if the defense is not going to do it, I suspected that the family was going to. And even that never happened.
Oh my goodness. But did they give them opportunity to?
And it's been 28 years ago. Not all, but again, I think that was all a urging of the defense, who again says that he did not time nor that case should have been given.
Right.
I really was prepared to do anything.
Oh my goodness.
I can't speak for what he was thinking. I mean, I think, in my assumption, what I think happened, the state felt good of the case they had. It was merely just formality to go through for Mr. Williams to give him kind of thing under his belt. It's his first jury trial.
Right. And Arctic Fox says Josh taking the time to worry about that pot plant in the bedroom kind of bothered me a bit. Do you have any comment about that?
It didn't happen with me. I mean, it was a 14-year-old kid that at that time, my understanding is they didn't even know that the mother was, and it was not unusual for the mother to not be home.
Right.
As they knew, they thought they caught something on fire because they had seen earlier in the evening. That didn't put a lot of weight with me. They definitely used it for him just to try to portray what kind of but it didn't really have anything. That was not any damning evidence, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah, it's more I think for Josh, I think it was probably like, "Hey, Bernie, oh my god, the cops are coming. We have a little tiny pot plant," because they are 14 years old, you know.
Correct. That's kind of where I stood with it. And,
yeah.
Heck, unfortunately now that is something that's legal and people don't put in. It wasn't at the time.
Right.
Obviously, 12-year-old kid. I mean, even if it had been a cigarette, if he was not permitted to be smoking a cigarette, I could see he would have jumped to alarm and gotten rid of that.
Right.
We also didn't know anything about one of the things that really sticks in my mind is the fact that a family member, and I think I previously mentioned that family member's name, had later approached the sheriff's department claiming that they found a tire tool
Yes.
that appeared to have blood on it that was in the closet that the investigators know for a fact was never present. What that would not have given to the jury to have been reasonable doubt.
That surely should have been brought about, that anybody in that area walking around, and then informed the other man that Rita had passed, not even knowing or being up there yet. I mean, from what I saw on the
Right.
MTV thing, that's kind of how that went. But
Do you know how
yes.
the proceedings work? Because until recently, I mean, until I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago, I really didn't even understand how they work. But once the state hones in on a suspect, you can't just go and say somebody else might have done this, or even plant a seed that someone else might have done that. You
Right.
have to have done that prior to it going to trial, and you have to get permission
Yes.
from the courts to do that. I mean, that is a little crazy in my opinion.
Right.
Because how are you truly ever going to prove that one is not guilty if you cannot, in fact, give the jury all of the evidence? And again, that lies back in the hands of Wayne Williams, who was the defense attorney, who just was not prepared. And even in his defense, he wasn't even the defense attorney the entire time. They just after someone else had left the office.
Mm. Wow. Wow. Wow.
There's nothing off limits. If you want to ask me, because I will answer it the best of. By no means am I a professional. Never
Right.
really wanted to do this, but
Right. I mean, this is not something that you want to have to fight this, because I mean, you are kind of the holdout, the one that's standing up to do the right thing. And like I said, I commend you so much for that and your integrity to know to do the right thing, because lot
yeah.
of people would just let this go, stay out of the light, just stay away, because it is so high profile. But when
Right.
there's a 14-year-old boy involved and all of these years that he could have been living a normal 14-year-old boy's life, someone did this. And if they can prove that, and obviously they have, that Michael is innocent, then he should be freed so that they can try at least to figure out.
And that's where my responsibility lies, because people are like, he's out of jail, and that's the biggest question I get. Isn't he out of jail? Why does this matter if he's not in jail? He is not a free man by any means. He still has to answer to his probation and parole officer. He has to check in. He has to get permission to travel. The biggest thing that I guess sticks in my mind is I know 14-year-old boys are. They're not completely grown up.
No, not at
and he
all.
went into jail as a 14-year-old boy. He's never experienced relationships, life in general. He
Right.
works in a construction site. I build houses for a living. I know how construction sites can be,
Mhm.
how it gets hot and people get provoked and people do things they shouldn't do. Any of those instances that he could get involved in and the police be called, he could be thrown back in jail for the rest of his life, because it would be a violation of parole. And I, in fact, do not believe he should be on parole, and I will not quit fighting until he is not.
I agree with you. Because if
And
they
if
can.
that means writing the president, writing the governor,
Mhm.
whatever I have to do, I'm going to be doing it.
So why has John Jones not even, like, he won't even have a sit down with you, a call, anything?
No, that's kind of comical in my opinion.
Yeah, like,
I
why?
actually the
What is he
first
scared of?
he's lazy. I believe he's somewhat uneducated. He did
Oh,
win the election, but I don't think that really speaks too highly of him, because there was some small town politics going on at the time.
of course,
Um,
because I'm very familiar with Washington County, so I
okay,
will agree 100% that if you have a name, and obviously he's a fourth, which tells me
hmm
that the third probably was in politics and the second also. And in that Washington
sure,
County, if you have a name and you have money, you have power. And
correct, yeah,
a
and
mhm.
I I 100% agree with that. I can also tell you that what you said earlier, you had made the statement as I back the blue.
Uh-huh.
If you've ever had a confrontation, if you've ever had a disagreement, or if you've ever had to publicly speak in a fact that you did not believe in a police officer, that is regional wide. If you don't believe in that officer, then you're against all officers. And I believe
Right.
that carries over into the judicial system.
And
So I
that's
believe
sad.
that John Jones knows well
Mhm.
enough,
Mhm.
correct? But I believe John Jones knows well enough that if he does do what is right by this case, and if the judges who might get a black eye from this, then that's going to be a negative influence on him. It's going to affect his political career. I actually was reached out to again yesterday, said, why don't you run for state representative? I have
Yes.
zero interest in running for state representative. And I'll promise you, this has nothing to do with my political career, because if it did, it would have done nothing but ended it.
Right.
Because in everyone else's estimation, I have something against police, against judges, against the judicial system. That is not the truth.
Only
What I have a
because you
problem with-
disagreed and you stood up. And see, we see
And-
that so much in small
Yes.
towns. You have
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. You if one
Yeah.
even if one officer goes against another and does the right thing and says, "Officer so and so is in the wrong," the good officer
Yep.
has to transfer, because if not, they're shunned throughout the whole thing. You have to transfer.
Exactly.
That's not fair. That's just not fair.
And I believe that since Mr. Hedgeforth had done all of his due diligence, requested, already filed a motion to vacate the system, I'm sorry, I'm looking for a word, but he had already made the agreement to get Michael vacated of this crime that he has so-called done.
Yeah.
And I think that led into a lot of Mr. Hedgeforth not being elected
Reelected.
and John
Yep.
Jones being elected. But
Mhm.
100% him from what he needs to do, because he knows that.
Mhm.
And if you ever take office and worry about your second term of office, then you're not serving the people who put you there.
Exactly. And if you
I
can't
served 24 years on the city council, and never did I care if it got me reelected this time. I never acted because of that. Never.
right, and I think you have a huge point with that, because I think Josh Hedgecourt, he was doing the right thing, therefore he didn't get reelected because of that. And how sad is that in today's world?
Correct. And there may have been other issues. I don't know. I mean, there could have been other issues, but I do believe that played into it.
Yeah, I do
And
too.
I believe and I'm going to tell you something that I may or may not should even mention, but I got a visit from a judge who was a friend of mine.
Uh-huh.
And I just said, I guess you're here about such, and it was whenever the 48 hours episode came out. And he was like, yeah, I just came to talk to you about that. You know, you're giving us a black eye about this, right? I should bop you on the head. And this was out of pure kindness, because this is a man with a wonderful heart. And I'm not saying this against him,
Right.
but he was sent to me to try to get me to shut up.
Oh, I
It's
believe
never
that.
going to happen. Never going to happen. That's never going to happen.
Mhm.
But with that being said, he was the messenger. He was just the messenger. And so they were trying to get the story loud and clear across to me that I needed to let this lie. And when he told me I was giving the system a black eye, I let him know that I think they do a fine job of that themselves.
There you go. Wow. I like you. I like you a lot. Because I'm the same way. My point is, even as an officer, I don't care if it's politics, if you're in law enforcement, if you're trying to do the right thing and you are serving and protecting, then serve and protect. If you are weak,
And you're never going to make everybody happy.
exactly, ever,
Yep.
no
But
matter what.
again, I never, in serving on the city council, I never did something thinking, oh my goodness, if I don't do it this way, or if I do it this way, it's not going to be elected. That never had bearing on the way that I handled myself, nor would it ever. But I
Right.
can promise you, this is not a bid for kind of an elected, because my political career is over, and that's by my choice. And if I wouldn't want to serve a system that's so broken. I really wouldn't.
Exactly.
So.
And this isn't the first time Washington County has had issues with what's going on in their town.
And that's any small town community.
It is.
Unfortunately, it's everywhere.
It is.
I wish it wasn't, because people like Michael Politte suffer the consequences.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know what I felt with him walking in the room. I had a young daughter at the time, and I just couldn't even fathom or imagine that any child could do that.
Right.
To their mother, and especially when him, and this is things after the fact, not during the trial, but saying, like, I know when I went to her funeral, I knew that she was the only one that would have had my back during the situation. Is that not heartbreaking? Because that's the truth.
God. Yes. That is
That's
the truth. It is the truth.
And why would you feel the only person that would ever? I mean, he could try to count on his sisters. He knew he couldn't count on his father. He can't count on his aunts and uncles. I mean, just like this rally that I put together, 25 people showed up. That's pitiful. I had 200 people saying they would show up, but when it comes to putting your money where your mouth is, didn't always happen. And it's because they were afraid of the retaliation from
Yep.
the courthouse.
Absolutely.
I'm not afraid of that.
They
I'm
are.
not afraid of that. I'm not afraid of Johnny Politte. I'm not afraid of Edward Politte. The only thing I'm afraid of is the fact that I will die before I can get this finished.
Oh. And you know, it's odd that they didn't bring up any of that to you guys. Any of it. Nothing. Did they even take statements from anybody out there? Or just automatically assume him?
I have this binder that's just full of statements, and you can't see it, but I have this binder that's absolutely full of statements and exhibits. I actually personally made this binder, presented it to the St. Francis County prosecuting attorney whenever he was assigned this case, and then he not immediately, but after a short amount of time, recused himself from the case and gave it to the Washington County prosecutor.
Oh.
I assumed that whenever he did that, he transferred all of the information to the Washington County prosecutor. But since 2.5 years had gone by and he wouldn't return my calls or anything, I took it upon myself to recreate this document once again. Personally was trying to dumb down the situation for him so that he didn't have to search through everything. Everything he needs to know to exonerate Michael Politte was hand delivered to him, and I have proof right here because I had a date stamped on time, stamped from his office showing that he has received it.
And he still would not take it.
I never have gotten to see the gentleman other than the fact that the first time I visited his office, I'd never been to the Washington County courthouse before, and I didn't realize when you take the elevator, you go into the elevator, it takes you straight up to the second floor. When you get out on the elevator, to the left is his office with a glass window, and to the right was a conference room.
Uh-huh.
There were two gentlemen sitting in the conference room. They were looking my direction, smiling, a little flirty, kind of like making eye contact. It was very nice until I realized I needed to step and stated my name. Then I stated my name. They heard my name. He asked the gentleman sitting across the hall or across the seat from him to get up and shut the door. He knew who I was.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then a third person that was in that room chased me down the hall and asked me what I was doing there, what that was about.
Huh.
Because he had just done and what he had witnessed.
Wow.
So. Yeah, he has no interest in talking to Mike Dudley, Blake Dudley, at least he did at least sit down with me at about 8 months to get the meeting with him. He did sit down with me for an hour, at least straight up with me.
Right.
Talk to me about it. I'm trying to give him a little bit of time. I'll give him that. He did at least do that. After, of course, I chased him down at the courthouse. After I caught, when he was standing up smoking a cigarette, I'd just bar in the courthouse and be like, hey, you don't answer my phone calls, just answer my text. So if you want to do it this way, we'll do it this way. But at least after some time of that, he did actually sit down with me. We set up a time and date. We had a meeting. We spent probably an hour and a half, I can tell you, because I documented the date and the time we started and finished. At least he did that.
Right.
And if Jones never planned to end with this case, you do whatever it is you have to do. Make me not be your problem. And on his.
And you know, so you weren't even familiar with like any of the officers that investigated it then, because you're not from that county, right? So you didn't know any of the officers.
Didn't know any of the officers other than Kurt Davis. And I didn't know Kurt Davis, but he had worked for Park Hills for some time, or he either worked for Park Hills, Elvins, Esther, or River Mines, one of those cities that later incorporated in. So I was familiar with his. And then I was running for presiding commissioner back in 2016. He sent me some messages through Messenger, like, hey, beautiful, how are you? And I just politely responded, hey, I'm Linda, beautiful. Thanks for messaging me. What can I help you with? And he was trying to he was trying to spark up a relationship with what he was doing. But he wanting to inquire whether I was my dad's wife. And I said, no, I'm actually my dad's daughter. Neither here nor there. I'm very much and really have zero interest in you. And so that just confirmed to be true already, which was that he was a little bit of a slime ball.
Right.
So he was the officer who was actually the one that hand wrote 3 of the people who were at the scene that day's witness statements. He actually wrote those for them. He's also the one that transported Michael from the scene and made the statement that Michael had asked something about if they could tell if he'd cut his mom's throat. which that's not what he said. He just said, will they be able to find out how they killed my mother?
Oh, wow.
But yeah, that name had zero credibility.
Mm.
Unfortunately, he's since passed of a heart attack, because I was praying to goodness that we could get this together and put him on a stand and just have questions for him at a later date, but we didn't get to do that. So, and that's what's happening. I mean, as more time goes by, more people are not available to answer the questions that need to be asked, just like Mr. Zerator, who was the
Sure.
person that examined about it. He's no longer here. Just like the fire gentleman that did the initial fire investigation that messed that all up. He's no longer here.
Mm.
I hope these people take the amount of guilt to their grave that I'm going to take to mine for what
Right.
they did to them. And
Yes. Yeah. I agree. And the fact that they didn't even try to do anything, and this was a grand jury, correct? Like they got you guys all together and did a grand jury, not just a regular jury, to get him
I don't
arrested, or
know. I
was
don't remember.
okay? So this was a
I
regular
don't know the
trial.
answer to that. Yeah, it was a jury trial. I was never on a jury.
Okay. Okay.
That came from the Washington County grand jury, and that can be called the charges and sent it to Francis County to be tried.
Okay. Okay.
And
Wow.
that tells you what little bit I knew about the system, because I just never had dealings with being in court or having to be in court, or I just never, any attorneys or police officers that I had ever knew were good people. A lot of them were my friends.
Wow. And it's so sad, you.
To be a commission.
And so when Michael came in, and of course they used it's really sad to me that they used the Bernie thing, because he has had that nickname since a little boy, like tiny. Not because of that.
But
That
you
was,
knew that.
yeah, yeah. But they didn't know that. You guys didn't know that.
You knew that. But I didn't know that, and no other juror knew that. Up until 2000, that's one of the things that when I finally watched that episode, I'm like, oh, calling him Bernie. And I mean, like, even
Yeah.
when they did it in court, I was like, how unprofessional is that? Why wouldn't the defense attorney be like, stop calling Bernie, call him Michael Politte? Because it was that much of an issue for me that they were calling him that. But nobody ever objected to it, except for me. I guess I'm the one that questioned it.
That is so sad. Because I mean,
It
like I
did come
said,
up
that
in
was his
deliberation.
childhood nickname. It wasn't because
Right.
of any reason. Oh,
But
that's
when it came up in
heartbreaking.
deliberations, it was, they even call him Bernie because he burns things. You heard the one guy testified that he was sitting in the living room flicking the
Flicking,
lighter, a
yeah.
big lighter back and forth. Yeah, I mean, that all of that indicated to us that he was a firebug.
Oh my
And that he had
goodness.
gasoline on his tennis shoes. Again, the only physical evidence was the gasoline on the tennis shoes, but the circumstantial evidence was the fact that he was a firebug. He was called Bernie. He flicked a lighter to kind of threaten his mother, even though the Politte, who's convicted of first-degree murder, he's the one that made that statement. Even he said he didn't, even though he was doing it, he did not feel like he was doing it in a threatening manner. It was just a kid sitting there, like with a fidget toy,
Yeah.
licking the bick on a lighter.
Well, yeah, and a lot of children with ADHD
not-
will do that.
Right. But
Wow.
the actual court proceeding was not portrayed that. It was portrayed that he was doing it basically. I'll show you.
Yeah, like to torment, threaten the mom. That's so sad. That's
Correct.
my goodness. So how are you
But
dealing
yes.
with it? How are you mentally dealing? That's a lot. This is a lot.
Oh, it pisses me off, frankly, and nothing motivates me more than that. So
Yeah. Right. And you're strong will. I mean, I'm
And
sure
I mean,
the
that's-
Innocence program has gotten a hold of you, and I'm sure you've helped them a lot with just, being the juror.
I intend to. Yeah, I intend to, and I have questions from time to time. Some questions for them because I have let them do their job, and of course, if they need me, I'm here, and they know that.
Yes.
But most of the questions that I ask for them is basically, now if I do this, will this not interfere with anything that you're doing? Because I don't ever want to hamper them in their proceedings. I don't ever want to keep them from doing the true work because they are the ones that will ultimately make this happen for me. If it can be the persons in the background that just kind of brings light to it, then so be it. That's what I will be.
Right. Right. Wow.
But yeah, I always will just be like, hey, Megan, I know you can't give legal advice, and Megan is one of his attorneys, but I'm going to do this. And with that being said, with that interrupt anything that you're doing, and she'll just tell me yes or no, and that's where we leave it. So.
So I know that in one of the videos it says that you and Michael were at the same social gathering. How did you react to that? Like, were you like, "Oh, wow," or your heart beat fast? How did you react?
Well, I actually could have vomited. Never even crossed my mind. My daughter is really good friends, has been great and best friends with a young lady. It was her mother's 50th birthday. We were pulling up in the front of the house, and my daughter said, "Mom, I never thought about it, but do you think that Michael Politte will be here?" And I was like, "Oh, wow, I don't know.
Oh,
I had not even considered that." But Michael Politte was dating her friend's aunt at the time. And sure enough, and I can't remember if he was there first, and I believe I was there first. I believe I was there first and was standing there talking to the birthday girl. And then I saw him and his girlfriend Heather walking towards us. And that's,
oh,
I probably would not have gone, honestly, um, because I'm not happy with the way that things went for him. And I really didn't know how he would receive me.
right,
But
right.
I deserve it. Whatever, however he feels about me, I deserve it because I could have done more at the time. I wish I would have known what I know now. I would have done more.
But you didn't
But at
know.
the time, I didn't know. But I mean, ignorance is no defense.
Well,
So
you would only be shown what to know. I mean, you wouldn't know anything about it. It's you can't really hold the guilt of what they did not present. I hope you know that. Like
but I
it's
do.
not. Oh,
But I do because I should have known better. And I mean, I don't know. I do. I do carry a lot of guilt for that. And especially when people say, "Well, God, I can't believe you did that." Even I know that, so and so Politte did it, or this guy did it, or this guy was involved. Boy, I sure wish I would have known all of the things that they knew because there's no way in the world that I could have ever said that young man was guilty.
oh,
And honestly, until they cleared the jury, I wasn't sure what I would say. I finally just agreed to it in the jury room so that we could get out there because I thought that at that time I'm going to have to make a decision. And I swallowed as hard as I could swallow. I had a lump in my throat. I was very upset and cried. And finally, I muttered the words guilty. And I could have fallen to the floor because that's something I never wanted to say. But I really
right,
didn't know what I could do or what I should do or how that would affect me.
right. Or your safety, because you don't know. You just don't know.
Exactly.
In these small
Exactly.
towns, safety is a huge thing, and it's very dangerous to not
And
agree.
I had that was in
Mm-hmm.
1998, so I had a 5-year-old little girl at home. So
Oh,
yeah, yeah. And all I knew is I wanted to go home to her, and that doesn't make it right. But that's all I knew is I didn't know. I mean, you got
right.
people slamming their fists down and
Oh
cussing
yeah.
ugly words to you, making threats, and all while the bailiff is standing outside the door. But that did not make me feel safe. I was a 29-year-old kid,
Right. Right.
so.
Wow. Wow. So what
So
can
yeah,
we do to help you, Linda? What can we do to help you and Michael as creators? What can we do to help you get this word out and try to help you?
if you can share, and that's what I often tell attorneys or people that reach out to me. It's really hard for me to create something and share it on social media because I've been accused of wanting attention. I
Oh my
promise you, I don't
goodness.
need any attention.
No.
Um, don't need it, don't want it. So people would kind of disregard, oh, it's just her again. She was on 48 hours. She just wants to share that. Absolutely not. I would have loved to have not had to been on 48
Well, no, that's
hours.
embarrassing
But
enough
it
to
is what it
even,
is.
you know.
Exactly. Exactly. Trying to go somewhere. "Oh, I know you. I just saw you." And I'm like, yeah. So that is hard for me to create something and then share it because people assume that I'm seeking attention. Again, I promise you, I don't need attention. I
Yeah.
have
I
plenty
don't
of
get that.
attention from people
I
I
don't
love.
get that from you.
Yeah.
I get from you that you have a conscience and you feel that that was wrong and you're still fighting today because you wish you just would have went with that gut feeling. But when you're in a room with
Right.
other jurors that are pissed off at you and they're he's
Oh
guilty. I
yeah.
mean, that's a hard place to be in because you have to face these people. You're going to run into these people. And if you have a 5-year-old at home,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's dangerous.
It was dangerous. It was very dangerous.
Mhm.
Again, I mean, and the biggest thing that I kept on thinking, it was like, and I can tell you that I had a talk conversation with my friend who was not at that time, but later, probably. And she and I were discussing. I was like, I just wish I could have done this differently. And I said, you always air something of what would be worse if I would have found him innocent and later found out that he was guilty. That to me could have been worse, but not really worse. But she actually said to me, as a prosecuting attorney, which tells you the kind of person that she is, which is A1, and I wish she was still there. She said to me, is I can only think of one thing worse than having, she said, I would rather have 12 guilty people running the streets of the town than having one innocent person in prison.
Right.
Tells you the integrity of the prosecuting attorney that you have. Because you're never going to get that from these prosecutors. Too much about winning. It's too much about being right. And it's never, ever are they going to admit that they were wrong. And one thing I hate is when people say, oh, he's innocent, and so now he should get too much money and he should get this. Don't make it about the money. It's not about the money to me. It's not about the money, Michael. And the more you mention the fact that he could be eligible for reimbursement is just reducing the idea that the state will ever do the right thing because they don't feel liable.
Right. And they don't care.
Don't do that. And I always often say, and I often say, if you can't part of the solution, stop being the problem, because asking stupid questions, making stupid statements, or accusing people of wanting money, that's the problem.
Yeah, exactly.
In fact, lies the reason why this will never do the right thing. And so I usually get onto those kind of statements because, in my opinion, they're just wrong.
So, what would you say to anyone?
And you could never give this.
What would you say to anyone that has jury duty and comes across something like this, a high-profile case? What kind of advice would you give them?
Disregard what they tell you about listening to your stomach and listening to your heart, and do it. Because I wish I would have done that 27 years ago, because I wouldn't lose sleep at night. I wouldn't have to worry about who I'm facing. I wouldn't have to worry about stopping at a grocery stand late and finding out that it was actually a gentleman that probably did take murder and could have put myself in a dangerous situation. Listen to your heart, listen to your gut, and ask for a competent defense attorney. And I think that he is probably one of the finest and most competent defense attorneys and prosecutors at this point. But at that time, he was new and he was green. And take that into consideration. Ask more questions. I wish I would have asked more questions. What I wouldn't give to be on a jury today, because I can promise you, I do a whole lot of things differently. But I think I'm pretty much going to that chance ever again.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get jury duty anytime soon. I don't think they're going to mail you a jury duty paper.
Oh, they do every once in a while. They may make that mistake, and then as soon as I go, I'm immediately,
Yeah, they're like, nope, not her, not Linda. Nope, she's out of here. And I can completely understand that, because having lived in small towns all my life, and the danger of going up against a name with power is extreme. It is. And you can face some consequences, even your family. I mean, people don't understand not only small towns and crime, and they say you die famous. Well, yeah, you do, because everyone knows everyone's business. But once that comes about, everyone in that town will go one way or the other. And I feel like they went against you rather than back you up to do the right thing because of names and power and position.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I have people that reach out to me and go, so-and-so, I'd like to tell you this about so-and-so, or Kurt Davis, or, I knew this about the case and I knew that about the case. But then when it comes down to passing that information along to Megan, they won't return phone calls, or they won't participate. They won't show up to the rally. I mean, you tell me, we'll be there, we'll bring an army. You don't even show up. Yeah. To me, that's very frustrating. I took a day off of work on Tuesday, which is not a huge deal.
Right.
I would have done it because it's something that I need to do for Michael. But if I can take a day off of work, you can take a day off of work if you truly want to come up and show your support. Because I was a little disgusted, because I have promised John Jones, and I will stand up to this promise, that I will tell anybody and everybody that will listen to me that he is not fulfilling his duties as a prosecuting attorney. Mm-hmm. And I will say that until the day he either does the right thing or he is no longer in that position.
Which he's only in there, 3 years? Isn't like a 3-year term?
I think isn't it 4 years?
It might be 4, yeah.
It started. Yeah, so I think I was actually going to look that up, but nothing on the Washington County website is current or accurate. So
of course not. It never is.
Well, I was hoping when I held the rally that it would be the same day as the county commission, because I wanted them to see that. But actually, it was posted that it was on Tuesday, but they're in fact holding their meetings on Mondays, which is a violation of the Sunshine Law, I might say.
Right.
So, but yeah. But again, I
Wow.
have to pick my battles. Am I really, truly concerned about when and where they hold their meetings? No. But I
No.
want them to be aware that they have an office holder who is neglecting his duties.
And on top of
So,
that, think of how many other children at 14 are have served their whole life in prison over something like this, where jury gets
right.
false information or not all of the information just because they think they have the guy but have no proof. They convince the jury, and yet, like Michael, he grows up in the prison system. That is
And
horrible.
thank God Michael thrived because honestly, until my first conversation with his attorney, which was a very emotional conversation for
Mhm.
me because I was just 100% sure that I had ruined this young man's life. And while I still believe we have affected his life,
Mhm.
she assures me that he thrived more in prison than he probably would have in Potosi. So not
Oh.
that it makes it right, but that's the kind of people that Michael is working with, and that's the kind of people that Michael is. Like he's always trying to give us, me, like even that day that I met him, he was reassuring me that like he didn't hurt me, like it's taken a
Oh.
little bit from, but he's always been protective of that, and to me that just speaks volumes
Seriously.
for
Wow,
what kind
so
of man.
he didn't even hold a grudge to you. He was just like, "You didn't hurt me. You just, it's not your fault."
Exactly. Yes. And
Wow.
he said, barring what you knew versus what we all knew, I mean, I could see where the decision could have been made. Although I don't know how his sisters feel because I expected that they would have been there Tuesday and neither one of them came. One said she had to work, the other one said she hurt her back, and maybe that's true. But
Yeah.
then too, I have to wonder, did they not want to face me? Did they not want to be around
Oh,
me? Do
no.
they
I
have
I think I Melanie and Crystal are very, very good people, and I don't think
oh,
they have anything against you. I think they have been this battle has torn them up so, so bad that they're just so thankful that their brother's home. I think they are trying to just put
move
that
forward?
little
And
yeah, they're trying to
well, and
distance it.
that's why this kind of went on for as long as it have because I would have been pushing on the prosecuting attorney harder. But at that birthday party, Michael just kind of said to me that he was kind of done fighting and just wanted to live the life that he had left, and I wanted to honor that
Oh,
because I
yeah.
was ready to go fight, fight, fight. But yet I didn't want to be bringing attention to him if he truly just wanted to live and just wanted to be
Right.
without. So
Right, and he
I
deserves it,
tried to honor that.
and he
Yeah,
deserves
absolutely.
a decent life for sure, and it was so it always tears me up to see him on that bicycle because, like I said, my hometown is Washington County, and I can remember him riding bicycles, all those boys down to the railroad tracks and back and to that little store, and they would all that's what they did, that's
Yeah,
just what they did. Country life. It's boys that
right.
have fun, so
Yeah. Well, just this last January, my husband was gone on a hunting trip.
mhm.
And of course, I don't say a lot of this to my daughter because she's like, Mom, just please stop. I worry about you. But
Aw.
he was gone and I was home alone. And my phone rang, and my husband was hunting near Jefferson City. And my phone rang at like 10:30, 11. It was late at night. And it was a Jefferson City number. And normally I
Oh,
would not have answered. But he was out of town and he was in that area. So I was concerned something may have happened, like a car accident or anything.
sure, sure.
So I pick up the phone and I answer it, and he says something. This gentleman mumbles something, and I can't make it. And I'm like, I'm sorry, you must have the wrong number. And he says, No, baby, I don't have the wrong number. Like being alone.
Oh,
And I said, I'm not home alone. And he said, I know for a fact you're home alone. And if you stick around there very much longer, you're going to know how I know.
oh,
And I was, well, okay then. So
hmm.
yeah, I had, needless to say, packed a bag and left for the evening. But those are the kinds of things that every time this comes up, I face. And I don't know if they're legitimate concerns or legitimate threats, but it's certainly a little unnerving.
Well, it seems as if you're getting these phone calls. I mean, what are they so afraid of? The truth?
Right. Exactly. And I suspect people being paid. And, oh, that's one of the things that I was going to tell you is one of the other ladies that's because you asked why they don't get involved.
Uh-huh.
And she did her affidavit. She said she's agreed to have conversations with me, but then it never happens. Her grandson is in prison. And so
Oh,
I often consider that she might be reluctant to go against the system because it could
affect her
have some bearing
grandson's.
on him.
Yeah. Wow.
I only think that in my mind, but I just feel like any other reason, why wouldn't she have done this? I'm sorry for the noise in the background, but
No, that's okay. Yeah, and I can understand that too because, like I said, yeah, it's great. Small towns are great, but there's also so much corruption that it's dangerous to stand up to anything in power, anyone in power. It is.
It is meanwhile, but even more because if well, that they're like, you're too busy, you can't take on any more, but you do this, and that. Well, if nobody else is going to, then I have to do it.
Right, right,
And I'm usually, and they always say, if you want it done, ask a busy person.
right, right.
But I don't know. I just sent you a little private chat just because you and I have never discussed.
Right,
You
yeah.
now know who I am.
Yeah, yeah. And
So
it's so sad that that Melanie and Crystal have fought so hard for their brother the whole time. And it's like they were just screaming to deaf ears. No one would listen, you know.
that's where I felt. That's pretty much how I felt. I wrote email after email and memo after memo to John Jones and first to Blake Dudley to try to get them to do something, and they won't. They just ignore it.
Right.
And I know that that's the answer for attorney, and that's what I always tell people. If you're going to hire an attorney to take your case, take their advice. Like, don't hire an attorney and then disregard what they're telling you to do, not do.
Exactly.
And so I know that this is their tactic is like no response is a response. I get that. That's not going to work for it.
Right, right.
So, especially being on the city council, people, our attorney would always tell us if somebody asks a question, don't let them force you into an answer because you might not give the best answer at that time. So just don't respond or tell them you'll get back with. I know that's what he's doing to me.
Right.
But eventually that's going to run out for him. So
yeah, like how long can he avoid you?
promise.
Eventually he has to face you somewhere somehow.
Apparently 3 years. I actually did run into him at a United Way fundraiser, but I didn't realize that's who he was. But now I do know who he is. So next time I will just make myself known. And of course, in the position that with my job, I have to be, and nor would I not ever, but I have to be professional, and I always will remain professional.
Right.
But I will get my point across. So, yeah.
As you should.
So eventually he and I will be in the same circle. And I will, yeah. Eventually we'll be in the same circle, and he will have to have a conversation with me. So just
Right.
like when I caught Blake, he kept saying, I'm too busy, can't meet, can't meet. Finally, I caught him standing outside in front of the courthouse smoking a cigarette. I was like, well, obviously you're not too busy right now. So let's just do it. And I can stand here while you smoke.
Oh, I
Needless
love
to
your
say, I
strong
got
will.
it.
You're definitely strong-minded.
Yeah,
I love that. I do.
Got
Well,
an appointment. Now he smokes on the side of the building where he thinks we can't see him, but I can still see him.
Oh yeah, yeah. You can get
Yeah.
away. You can get away.
No. John Jones sent word by Dr. Stephen Crawford, who is my mother's doctor. My mother's in a nursing home, and he's her doctor. And Dr. Crawford was curious about the whole case, and he was like, "I know John Jones. He's a good guy. I'll have a conversation with him." Blah blah blah. And then I get word from Dr. Crawford that John Jones thinks I'm a nut job, and this kid 100% did it. And now he no longer wants to discuss this case with me. Well, I can promise you, John Jones, I'm not a nut job. And you will have a conversation with me one day.
And on top of that, John Jones, you're not a judge, and you
Right.
don't know 100%. So for an official to say something like that is enough unprofessionalism to maybe y'all need to vote him out. Really.
If I was a constituent of Washington County, I promise you I would vote him out, but I don't get that opportunity. So yeah.
Yeah, that's
that
crazy.
really did.
So he's
infuriate
judge and
me.
jury.
And I.
That's the problem with Washington
Oh
County.
yeah. and he was
Everyone's judge
of
and
me
jury.
too. Judge of me, judge of my character. Yeah, judge of my character. And I let Dr. Crawford know that he was an idiot. And now I had great concerns about him being my mother's doctor.
Yes.
And I certainly had certain great concerns about the company that he kept, because he did inform me that this conversation they had about me happened in a gentleman's club. And to me, a gentleman's club is nothing more than that. It's a male chauvinistic club where they've already made up their minds, and that's okay.
Yep, I agree.
So that gave me a great, because I used to give the benefit of the doubt that John Jones might be a great, upstanding female family man, because he appears to have 8 children, according to his Facebook. But now I have a much lesser opinion of him as a person.
Well, if he has that many children, I pray to God that none of his children are ever in the situation that Michael was in, because how would he feel? How would he feel?
That's exactly what I said. Well, I don't know if you know this, but he recently found himself in a little bit of a pinch because he got caught with the possible DUI.
I saw that, and I also saw
Right.
that another officer was covering up for him until he couldn't anymore. So then he brought
Right.
light to it, and now that officer has been fired.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Imagine
now
that,
they're
right?
right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yep.
So,
Yeah.
I know they followed me to town when I went into on Tuesday, and they followed out of town when I left on Tuesday. They followed me all the way to Roy's convenience store.
Oh, they will.
And then after I was in,
Mhm.
and I'm okay with that. They can follow me all day because they're not going to catch me doing anything wrong. I
Right.
will speed occasionally, and I'll do it right in front of them. So
Right. I had a little issue with my mother's death by some powerful people over in Washington County, and I will never get justice for her. But at the same time, karma has kind of taken over, and I have to just stick with that because a lot of times you will not get justice, and you have to still be able to move forward, and that's a hard lesson.
it is, and I can understand that in your situation, but I feel like now I have nothing to lose. I'm going to fight until I can no longer
Sure.
fight, or until Michael's like, I don't want to fight anymore. And if
Right.
Michael decides that he wants to move on and he doesn't feel more, then that's fine. But the other thing that really, really bothers me is like Michael's a give great advice, so please don't think that I'm thinking this is bad advice. But
Right.
I can't even have a conversation with Michael. I can't even ask Michael for forgiveness. He can't have conversation with me because of all of this until it's actually final. And if and when will it ever be final so that that can happen? That has no bearing on what I'm doing, but it certainly weighs heavy on my heart because I would like to know that at some point, Michael, and I do know this because I mean he said it in that one meeting that we had to where it was not planned. But I would love to sit with Michael. There's some questions that I would like to ask him. I have wanted nothing his forgiveness that I deserve it,
Right.
but
Right.
I have wanted that. Again, I mean I can't even have a conversation with him because of this proceedings. And that's not fair. So is he ever truly a free man? He's even told who he can and can't talk.
Wow.
Yeah.
Goodness. That's so sad. And the idea that so many other people could be innocent in prison just due to lack of police work, lack of caring is heartbreaking.
Well, and again, unfortunately, with my dad being a police officer, I 100% know that to be the truth because I had to learn that the hard way. I mean, I thought all police were good because my dad was good, but you know, and learning the hard way that that's not actually the case, and that's where this whole entire thing started was bad police work or the lack of police work.
Right. In
Michael would have
training.
never been charged if they would have done the investigation that should have been done, and then John Ruff, the prosecuting attorney's office, jumped on board and was like, "Okay, let's make a name for myself. Let's win this high profile case. I'll move on up, and
Right.
we'll never correct this thing because nobody wants to admit they're wrong." So they
Right.
were wrong.
Right.
I was wrong. Everybody on that trial, on that jury was wrong. Everybody in that courthouse, everybody in the proceeding, including the public defender, everybody in that, we just failed.
Yeah,
So,
but you
and the
but
justice,
you weren't provided all of the evidence. If you would have
you
known,
know that.
yeah,
Yeah, you know that, but not
not
the typical
everyone.
person doesn't know that,
Right.
right? They
Right.
just
Right.
assume that. And there are still those people out there that think he's guilty because we found him guilty. And how could we have found him guilty if he wasn't guilty? So
Right.
there's
Right.
still that you deal with. But yeah, you know that because you've actually been involved. But most people don't know that.
Right. Right.
So,
You're right. You're very right.
and all I can ever say is I just pray that you're never put in the position that I was put into. You be not you, but you as
Yeah, I know what you
anyone
mean.
never put in the position and have to make the decision that I made and then live with it for the rest of your life.
Right.
So,
Right.
but again, I'm not above hiring an attorney as a juror and finding out what kind of rights that I have as a juror because
Sure.
I can't get to do it. So that's actually what I'm looking into right now.
Have you thought about
It's
going to the news stations?
I've been, but then you
Oh, you've been.
get one not attention.
Oh, well, yeah. Yeah, you're right. Wow.
Yeah, so then I often limit myself to only discussing this with people who the attorneys will agree to allow me to do that with.
Right. Right. Of
Because
course.
again, I don't want to do anything that hinders it. Yeah.
Yep. You don't want to hinder
So, and
any
you
of
never,
this.
if
Right.
the prosecutor, you would never threaten a prosecutor. I'm threatening the prosecutor. I'm promising him that I can keep doing what I do. So
Right.
you
Right.
speak to judges because you know they're protected. You can't. You have to be very careful about. And this was I didn't know. Can I speak to another juror? I don't know. I don't know, but that's where I'm going to find
Yeah, I would
somebody
definitely
who
look
will
into
take my.
that for sure.
Yeah, because I want to know and I want to do it correctly. Because I hold positions that I can't be convicted of crimes because
No.
of the jobs that I hold, and it's something that I find I love. I don't want to give up, and I certainly don't want to ruin my reputation. I've worked 53 years to gain.
Right.
It wouldn't do
Absolutely.
Michael any good if I was to get myself in trouble. And I won't send one, but what you see is what you get.
Right. Right. Well, Linda, I want to thank you so much for being as brave as you are and doing the right thing. It may not mean much just coming from me, but honestly, you have gained my respect ungodly for standing up, even because I've always said doing the right thing is never easy. Even if you have to stand alone, you stand alone because it's people like you that make a difference in this world. Honestly, honest to God, it is.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank
You're
you. And
welcome.
that's what I said about Tuesday. I mean, I hope 200 people show up, but if nobody shows up, then I'll stand out there by myself.
I did see some
And that's,
familiar faces, though.
I appreciate well, good. Well, I
Yep.
was really surprised that Lamar Johnson came.
Yep.
I
Yep.
was pretty of that. I wish
Yep.
that the corner would have lended itself to more of a presentation because he was willing to speak and talk about, but it really didn't. There was a lot of people coming by and honking. But okay,
Yeah.
Lamar has platform. If he wants to say something, you can say it elsewhere. So.
Right.
But
Right.
no, appreciate you recognizing that. It means world to me because I promise you that is not a perception that I get whenever I talk about this. I mean, people roll their eyes every time I get 350 likes on my baby's picture, but I can't get 10 people to share my post about my bully.
Oh, well, you will now, because everyone in
I
this
have
chat,
I have a
everything.
darling grandson, and you should still loving. You should keep loving his pictures, but share my Michael Politte stuff too, because
Right.
you
Right.
know, if you don't be limited to the people that I. And if you see somebody making a negative comment on there, I mean, I tend to just try to ignore them. But if you could just let them know if you're not a part of the solution, you're part of the problem. So either say
Exactly.
something nice or don't say it at all.
Right. Right. Brutally
So
says, Linda, everything happens for a reason. Maybe in the grand streamus, grand scheme of things, to make changes is how things are done. And honestly, it takes good people to know good people. And the fact that you're standing alone against that, hey, you know what? You're brave. And I give you so
I,
much credit and respect for knowing and admitting, hey, we did wrong.
yeah, well, I appreciate that. I thank you. This is
You're welcome.
it's not unfamiliar territory to me, nor is it,
Right.
it just is. It's yeah. So, but again, I'll keep doing it. And if you want to speak again, please don't hesitate to call me. I
Sure.
appreciate your questions. I honestly didn't know what to expect. I was going to be expecting are you stupid? Are you crazy?
Oh God, no, no, no. And anytime that you want to come up on this panel and talk about it, you're more than welcome to, because that's what my channel is to give people that feel like they're not heard somewhere to just let it out. Just say what you
Yep.
need to say, because I feel like not being heard is harder than just even trying. It's so hard. It's like you're invisible. That's not fair. It's not.
Sure.
So
Right.
I do
Exactly.
ask.
Well, I can tell you, until driving home from St. Louis last night, I actually had my daughter to listen to the thing that played on NPR radio. And
Yeah.
there was so much about this case that she did. She was like, "Oh my God, Mom, I didn't know. Mom,
Yeah.
I didn't know this. I didn't know." And I'm like, "I know, and now you're 30. I don't have to really protect you from it, but I've always tried to protect you from it.
Oh.
Plus, anything, and my husband's like, "Oh, good God, is she going to talk about this again?" Yes, she is.
Yeah, and he's probably just looking at the safety part of it, not so much of, he cares, but he's worried about your safety, because this is
He is.
dangerous. This is a dangerous thing. It
He
is.
is. It is, and I get that. But I'm going to
Yep.
tell you, if I lived my life being dangerous, I could walk out of this office. I could even move, and things are going to happen, and when it happens, it happens.
Yep, I've always
And
said that. I've always said,
honestly,
things are dangerous, but I may go out by a bus. Who knows? Danger's danger everywhere.
that's right. Right. If something mysterious happens to me, then just promise me you'll talk about that too. So
Right, right. Well, Linda, thank you so much
yeah,
for joining us today. I appreciate it. It's been an honor to have you up here. And I promise you, everyone in chat will share share and share. You may get more shares now than you possibly want, but I promise that we will share. We're right behind you.
I do appreciate that. And again, if you need me, please don't hesitate to call. So.
Same here. Same. If you have more
All
to
right.
say, just you're welcome on my panel anytime. You have a wonderful day, Linda.
Well, thank you. You too.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow, guys. I mean, I'm so impressed by her. They're a strong woman. Strong, strong, strong woman. And I respect that. Standing up alone, doing the right thing. So please, if you will, share. Just share, share, share. Let's get Michael Politte's story out there more. Let's get these people that are so corrupt and so, oh God, selfish. Selfish. Let's just get his story out there and hope that one day he can live the life that he deserves without having to get a hold of a parole officer. One day he may have children. You know, he deserves a normal life. And on top of that, Rita Politte's murder deserves to be solved because she deserves justice. On top of all of this, we still have a killer out there. So, with that being said, I just want to thank each and every one of you for being here. And Linda, if you're listening, thank you so much for being a wonderful person, one that will stand up to do the right thing. We need more of people like you. You guys have a wonderful day. Thank you for being here, and I hope to see you next time. Take care, guys.
Does anyone understand? Does anyone lend a hand? When the silence starts to bite, will you join me in this fight? Can you see them in your dreams? Can you hear their desperate screams? A heartbeat lost in the night. Oh, will you help me be their voice? In the darkness, let's rejoice, 'cause together we can shine a light. We'll raise our hands, we'll raise our hearts. Let's make a stand, let's tear apart the chains that bind, that